everyone. Welcome to this new episode of the Swift Academy, the podcast. In this, where we explore the in and outs of iOS development, I'm your host, Walid, and today we have an exceptional guest with us. Joining us is Jon Reid, senior software developer and the leading authority in on unit testing and test-driven development on iOS. John is the author of the highly regarded book for me in unit testing, which is iOS Unit Testing by Example, which has become a go-to resource for developers aiming to improve the reliability and quality in their iOS application. Hello, John, and how are you?
Hello, Walid. Thank you for inviting me onto your podcast. I'm so honored.
Thank
This
you,
is
thank you,
exciting.
John. Thank you, John.
Sorry,
And
I can't speak French. I've forgotten all of my French.
okay, but
Le tout oublié.
you have visited Paris, I think, before or not?
When I was a child. Mais
Ah,
je l'ai tout oublié.
oh, tu parles bien le français.
Non, 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 non.
Okay,
Pas
great.
du tout.
Okay, great. I think that you have a lot of experience. I think many years in iOS development and before in software development, software engineering, etc. That's why we can begin speak about your career. Uh, you have an impressive career working at company like Apple, Skype, Meta, Adobe, American Express, and I think eBay. Maybe you can share a little bit about your experience and this experience, your roles in this experience. What? How did this experience at this company shape your approach to software development and especially in testing?
Well, uh, I have good news and I have bad news.
Okay.
Um, Maybe I
Okay.
should start with the bad news. The bad
Okay.
news is that you may look at these companies from the outside and think they are the best at software development practices.
Yes.
However, on the inside, they often do not follow the best practices.
Oh.
Uh, and I have a theory about this, and that is that people are used to working in a certain way, and it's good enough
Mm.
uh, to make money with, and they have lots of money.
Okay.
So they don't realize that they are actually sacrificing two things. One is they could save money. Like that's for me, that's the selling point, the number one selling point of TDD,
Mm.
um, is to save money, and the other is to have more fun. I love doing what I do, but the good news is that I think things are improving slowly, and regardless of what happens at any company, you always have some control over yourself,
Okay.
which is how I started. Back early in my career, before I knew about some these good practices, I was working on code. Our whole team was working on code that none of us had written. Somebody else had written it. We
Yes.
we got it. It was our job to maintain and extend it. And there were parts of it we were afraid to touch because we just didn't understand. And it was felt like the smallest thing like might work for one case and would break 100 other cases, and we just didn't know. And I thought, this is insane. We were
Mm.
so frustrated. So I went researching to see what can we do better. At first, I was interested in design patterns because I thought this is telling us better ways of constructing software. But the place where I learned about design patterns the most, besides the classic book,
Okay.
was the original wiki. Uh, made by Ward Cunningham to discuss software. And so there was a section on design patterns, and there was this other thing called extreme programming. And I'm like,
Yes.
what is this?
Yes.
And I fell in love. And it's changed how I program, completely changed how I program.
Yes. A lot of people think that extreme programming it's died due to Scrum, agility, etc. But a lot of people think. But for me, extreme programming when it's created, it's a lot of idea and principle that people that create Scrum or other methodology inspired from extreme programming, pair programming, crafting, etc.
Yeah.
To and TDD, BDD, etc. That are principle or that the main idea of extreme programming that a lot of people like Kent Beck, Martin Fowler, etc. That and also Uncle Bob, other people that are in that the founder of Scrum and extreme programming. A lot of people think that Scrum it's for company, for product owner, for business, and extreme programming it's for developers. A lot of people think about that. For me, the two methodology are the same. A lot of principle in Scrum are inspired for extreme programming
Mm-hmm.
as a part of TDD, BDD, etc. But the problem that this concept are for me a little bit of people that have experience with this with the principle of extreme programming. A lot of people have knowledge about that, but little people can practice that. That's it's the difference.
And these days, actually, very few people know about extreme programming. Um,
Yes, very
because
very few.
it's been so long now.
Mm,
Kent thought it would take over the world,
yes.
and certain pieces of it have.
Mm,
Um, in slightly corrupted form, like continuous integration, CI/CD,
yes.
continuous integrations, continuous delivery. That was born out of extreme programming. Now
Yes.
people think that means automation, but that's not what it means. It means integrating
Yes,
all the
integrating.
time.
Yes. Yes. Great. Okay. Maybe this impact the our main subject today, which is TDD. Can you explain or give a definition for you of TDD?
Hmm.
And also speak about why TDD is not widely adopted in iOS development compared to backend. Because
Mhm.
when we prepare with you this podcast, we have invited people in LinkedIn to share with us some questions, and one of this question it's why it's TDD is not widely adopted in iOS development compared to backend development. Why do you think this is the case? And what are the main barriers, if you want, to
Hmm.
adopt TDD in iOS projects?
Yeah. So test-driven development is a discipline of saying that the test gets to basically make a small specification of behavior.
Mm.
Um, and then you code just enough to implement that behavior, but no more.
Mm.
It's important that the production code does not go ahead of the tests or do too much beyond what the test asks for.
Yes.
This ensures that the tests and the production code are walking side by side. They are friends.
Yes.
Um, and then, for me, the secret sauce of TDD is that once you have the two sides talking and working together, tests and production code, and you've add some behavior, then refactoring, changing the design, looking at the code and saying, what can I improve? What should I extract? What are the code smells? Then you can really go into great detail to clean up the code, because the test will automatically check your code for you. You don't have to do the manual checking as much. Still just a little bit, but not very often do you have to do manual checking. So it's a great technique for, oddly enough, the goal is not testing for me, right? The goal is delivering software quickly. And to do that, I need to be able to change the code. And to do that, I need to be able to have automated tests. And to do that, I need to have well-factored code, code that is easy to test. So all these things build up. Now, why is it less popular in the front end? And I think, when I wrote my book, that I did not intend to write a book about iOS unit testing. I was planning to write a book about iOS TDD. But as I talked with people about what is your main barrier, what is your greatest difficulty with test-driven development for iOS, the number one reason I got was that people didn't know how to write a unit test for for code that interacted with Apple's frameworks. It's fine for standalone code. Everyone seems to accept that it's okay to do test-driven development, that at least it's easier to think about doing test-driven development for something that is just pure business logic with input and output. But an app is mainly two things. It's UI and networking. For most apps,
Yes.
that is the heart of it, is UI and networking.
Yes.
And those are two things which people say are hard to do, hard to test. So that's why I changed course with my book to say, okay, I need to show people how to write tests for networking. I need to show people how to write tests for UI. My book only covers UI kit, but because Swift UI came as a surprise as I was
Yes.
writing
Yes.
the book.
Yes. 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 It was great. We have the book also. A lot of people maybe want to see the book. I bought it since 3 years. Yes, we have also the books. We use a lot of concepts, especially when we speak about doubles, spy, stab, mocks, etc. Because at the beginnings, I have a lot of confusions about different types of doubles and how to distinguish about that. And it was great for me to distinguish about spy, stabs, mock, fake. This concept I didn't know about that before, and how to use techniques like spying to make tests, especially in view model or presenters layers, to mock to create spy to handle that's I call, for example, an API. I use a spy at this moment to record the state for my course. For me, at the beginning, it's all this doubles are mocks for me. As it's mocked because I didn't find how to distinguish between these concepts, and we also, it was a great part when you speak in the books about how to make your abdelegates ignots create a kind of abdelegate testings in your
Uh-huh.
books. I remember about that because when we launched our testing, especially the application, if you work using the app delegates, the normal app delegates will maybe make a call for API like Firebase, etc. But
Oh,
when you're
yeah,
using,
yeah,
yes,
right.
you remember about that. You remember,
Yeah, you launch
yes,
your app, it does all these things and
all
it
these things.
contacts
But
Firebase.
when yes, when it was great, great. topics in your books, and honestly, at this moment we use a lot of concepts in our. Okay, there is also we have used now library to create our mocks, which is Swiftly
Hmm.
Mocky to generate.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of spy and fake and dummy, etc.
Mhm.
Created manually using our using Xcode, not using library like SwiftMonkey, and it was really great.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think it's really
yes,
important for people who are approaching fakes and mocks to do it by hand first, even if, like, even with Objective C,
yes,
where I wrote OC Mockito.
yes. I
Um,
know. Same Mokito.
and yeah, I miss how easy it is. But even with that, uh, I encouraged people to learn to write your fakes and mocks by hand
Yes,
first, so that you have a mental model of what's going on. Otherwise, it seems like magic. And but once you understand it, then you
yes.
can say, okay, is there a tool that will help me do this more effectively uh, and take care of some of the boilerplate repetition for me? And then it makes sense. But yeah,
Okay.
uh, there. Another thing about TDD in general is that, like you described, fakes and mocks. There are other things that people need to learn, like refactoring. Um, how to detect code smells, how to work with legacy code, and oh,
Yes.
are you still
I
there?
make.
Okay.
I still there because I make. I pushed the MacBook with the charge. That's okay. Okay, it was 8%. I have scrambled that it will it will turn
Good.
off. Yes.
Don't
Okay.
leave me. So,
Yes.
another thing is legacy code, because if you're most projects have lots of code that already exists, and then if you say, okay, how do I do TDD inside of an existing project?
Yes.
That's another skill to learn. So there's lots to learn, and there are good resources for learning this, I hope. But if nothing else, people can ask me. I'll
Okay. Okay.
I'll help.
Yes. Yes. Great. And what do you think about maybe other concepts that are related to extreme XP extreme programming, like BDD and DDD?
Hmm.
A lot of people think that DDD it's for backend. You should not read about DDD. It's not your job in front end. It's for backend only. And BDD, maybe when you have integration test, etc., you think that BDD you can. For me, uh, BDD and DDD, you can practice that, but you should have people that have experience with this methodology, if you we can see. And if people can do TDD, imagine that for me they can practice TDD or BDD. For me, these three, uh, if you can see methodology, are related to give us great software. But the problem that people didn't know, especially in front end, didn't didn't have experience with this concept and think that this concept are related only to backend. What do you
Hmm.
think about that?
I think I'm wonder if people think that because they think that the front end software is just simple. But you and
Yes,
I know it's not. Every
yes,
iOS developer knows it's
yes,
not simple, even though conceptually, um, again, I'm speaking not of high end apps, but of most consumer oriented apps, where it's we're just making network calls and displaying results and interacting with the user.
yes,
But
mm,
inside of that, every developer who works in iOS knows there is great complexity
yes,
and subtlety in those things and how they interact. And especially there are domain concepts that are waiting to be discovered. And that's where I think DDD, domain-driven development, and the patterns, especially the patterns that come from that book, are very helpful to make me ask first, can we get alignment on language, the common language, so that
Yes.
otherwise it's easy for the iOS developer to create something, the Android developer to
Yes.
create something else, maybe with some different names,
Yes.
uh, and then communication just breaks down. So it's not just about code; it is about teamwork and communication.
Yes.
Um, and then
Which
the
is
other patterns of DDD help me discover that I have something. I think there's an object. I think I'm discovering a type that doesn't right now it doesn't exist, but the code is doing lots of things. For example, maybe I need a type to act as a service. Maybe I need a type to act as a repository. These are
yes.
DDD ideas. They're
Yes.
very helpful. Behavior-driven development, or BDD, is interesting because my understanding of it is that it was mainly born from uh, Dan North and other people
Yes.
looking at people doing TDD wrong
Okay.
and thinking, ah, how can we help people think about it better? Let's talk about behaviors and not about tests
Okay.
and specifications. To me, BDD is just TDD done right. And so, uh,
Yes.
for example, when I'm interacting with some sort of view through my tests, I am trying to create a sort of express in the tests the journey of the user, that when something is set up and the user then taps this button, this thing will happen. Um, and so it's very behavior oriented, and what it's not about. It's trying as much as possible not to test the implementation, the details, because that we should be able to refactor whenever we want to. So that's my relationship with BDD. Is I think it's to me it's still TDD.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Great. For me, it's great. Okay. We deep dive into TDD techniques also. We'll speak about TDD especially. Okay. Before preparing uh, this episode, I speak without you about some TDD techniques, like which can speak about that in his book. This book is this book, the
Yep.
blue book. Yes,
TDD
which
by
is
example.
test-driven development by example, which the reference, the first book by Kent Beck. They speak about techniques like triangulation, fake it till you make it, and others. And I think that you have prepared to us some example using the first kata that we know, which is FizzBuzz, to explain this kind of techniques like triangulation, etc., and to share your knowledge about that. And also, we'll go further to speak about these techniques in iOS real projects and how we can move these techniques from FizzBuzz or Kata like that to real iOS project. What kind of challenge we have, especially when we speak about legacy code, etc.,
Hmm.
and code that are not development for testing, because there are a lot of code that people only it's code for production. It's not a testable code, which is very, I think, the first thing that represent barriers for people to make unit testing. I let you to share with us if you want, John.
All right. Let's see. If I share, let me share my screen.
Great.
So here we are in Xcode 16 beta, and I've set up just this empty framework. Oh, using Swift testing. Let's use Swift testing, right?
Yes, using Swift testing, which is great.
Let's
First
play
thing,
with a
yes,
little.
yes,
So FizzBuzz, the counting game, right? 1, 2. If it's divisible by 3 or multiple of 3, we say fizz. 4, if it's multiple of 5, we say buzz. So we
yes.
get to, if it's both, then it's FizzBuzz. One of the things I think people have trouble with, let me use my new template here.
Okay.
And let's call this FizzBuzz tests. No bridging header. And first thing I want to do is just make sure everything is set up okay.
Okay.
All right. So the hardest part is the first test. People often don't know, can't imagine how to write the test because they don't know what it is that they want to write.
Yes.
And I'll say it's okay to, at that point, to experiment, to try something and see, just hack some code to learn. The goal of the hacking, or spike solution, as it's called, is to discover, what is it? What do I write? And then once you have that idea, you throw it away and you start again.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
But let's start with let's see, Swift testing. For me, I would start with 1. Say goes to 1.
Okay.
Something like that. And a technique that I wish I had learned much earlier on, I wish I'd read Kent's book earlier, is to start from the assertion and work backwards.
Okay.
So let's say we expect something, I don't know what, to return 1.
Okay.
Until you can express an assertion, your test is sort of going nowhere. So it's good to start from the bottom to say, how do I even write the assertion?
Okay.
Then we can say, okay, so the result comes from calling FizzBuzz. Maybe I'll just make it a static method, and I'll say something like that.
Okay.
And what we are doing now is we're designing the API. We're playing from the point of view of the caller, not the implementer, to say, somebody's going to call this. Does this look okay? Is this what I want? Maybe I want it in a
create an object
an
like this. Yes.
Yeah, in an object instead. That looks pretty good. So once you think that's pretty good, then the next step is to make just enough so that the code compiles.
Yes.
And let's say it is a struct called FizzBuzz. Let me bring these side by side.
Okay.
There.
It's much better like
This,
that. Yes.
Yeah, this is a common technique with TDD, is to have the test code and the production code
Yes, production code. Yes.
side by side. So now that error has gone away. Now it needs a play method,
Yes.
and we can see it should be play taking some sort of value, or the round, maybe.
Okay.
Play round. Right, I'm just trying to get the signature right, and it still doesn't compile, so I'll just make it compile. It could also be blah blah. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
What we are trying to do is get to a failing test. Now let's see if this, okay, the compile error goes away. So that is enough structure now to where I expect the test to fail, and I expect it to say blah blah is not equal to 1.
Okay.
Let's see. There it is.
Yes.
Good. Now, here's where we do fake it until you make it. The simplest possible thing
Return
that
one.
can, yep,
Yes.
it was return 1. There we go. And that
Yes.
is successful and important. A nice thing about this is that this now successfully plays FizzBuzz for round 1. It
Yes.
only does round 1, but it
Yes.
does it right.
Yes.
That is, the outcome is correct. We know from looking at this that this is incomplete, and all that is when with fake it until you make it. You may decide that's good enough. That's all we need for now, or you may look at it and say, but we know it needs more.
Yes.
And when it needs more, then I know it needs another test.
Yes. Yes. We
And
should
so that gets into the triangulation,
triangulation. Yes.
right? Where we say,
To generalize our production code. To be yes.
yeah, 2 goes to 2. Let me just
Copy paste.
copy, paste that. Right? So this is triangulation. This second test will fail because it will say 1 is not equal to 2. Another useful technique with TDD is that it should not only fail, you should check the assertion to make sure your understanding is correct.
Yes.
1 is not equal to 2. Okay, so now we do the simple thing
Yes.
of saying, let's turn that into
Round.
a string.
Yes.
And now this should pass. So this is simple triangulation.
Yes. Yes. And triangulation is not sufficient to resolve our problems now because we should generalize also. It's not, we can not say that with 2 tests that we can generalize our code. If you make a test with 3 and 4, etc., we will find that we didn't respond to the goals of our exercise is FizzBuzz and integrate techniques like if, else, etc.
Yeah,
Okay.
have some conditional logic.
Yes, conditional logic.
Yeah, and so we would need more tests for that.
Yes, we need more tests for that. And I see that you have used the new framework. We keep that for other practical part. But people that see us, okay, it's great. We understand your techniques, etc. It's great, but in real project, in a complex API, etc., these things, you think that it's easy to do techniques like triangulation, fake it
Mm,
in a real project, especially when we call API, when we have some complicated business logic, and you didn't understand for the beginning this logic. How we can do that for you, John, in a real project?
That's a good question. And one challenge I would give people, though, is to
Yes,
say, before you attempt to do it in a real project with
yes,
your complicated business logic,
yes.
can you do it successfully with FizzBuzz? Because
Okay.
people struggle over this. When I teach people, um, I give a demonstration and then I ask them to do it. And it's because it's a new way of coding to most people,
Yes,
it feels backwards. They feel stuck. They don't know how to go through the steps of TDD in a smooth manner. And so, first, my encouragement would be practice. And that's exactly what katas are for, is for practicing. But then, uh, when approaching complex business logic,
yes,
the key thing with triangulation is to take that each path through the code is one test. It's one test should give a demonstration that
yes,
it can take this input with these conditions and somehow or other come to this outcome. And with triangulation, we grow it. We grow the complexity slowly. We don't let the complexity race ahead. And sometimes people write too much code.
yes,
I've done TDD where I think, and there's nothing wrong with thinking. People
yes,
say TDD involves you don't think. Yes, of course you think. Um,
yes,
but I think, okay, I'm going to need like all this complex things, and maybe I'll sketch out like a rough diagram of the types and
yes,
how they interact. But then when I write the code, sometimes it surprises me. Sometimes the code, as it grows gradually, test by test, and the complexity increases, and I refactor as I go,
okay.
the shape of the code comes out different than I predicted.
Hmm.
Not always.
Not
Sometimes my
always.
prediction is correct.
Yes,
But sometimes it catches me by surprise. And the beautiful thing about that is it is in trying to follow Kent Beck's 4 rules of simple design.
okay,
Um, that you want the code first, it needs to do the right thing, right? That's what ultimately what we need. But that we do the right thing with the simplest code possible, maybe with the
yes,
fewest uh, elements, or the code that is easy to understand, just enough types, but not too many.
okay,
Trying to find that sweet spot where the complexity is enough, but not too much. That
okay,
is where triangulation really wins and sometimes surprises me. I
okay,
love it.
great.
I love it when the code surprises me.
Yes, great. Okay, maybe we can speak a lot about a specific challenge that you have faced when you applying TDD techniques in scale iOS projects.
Hmm.
Uh, how do you overcome this challenge and maintain like an efficient and effective process? Because in real projects, a lot of pressure about business, etc. You
Yeah.
decide you that okay, I love TDD, I want to begin. I really practice a lot of kata, etc. I think that I'm comfortable with using TDD, but when I come in real projects to make special, imagine that you have a call to API that register users, etc. It's a practical use cases that every developers in front end Android or iOS faced this use cases, what kind of process you, John, when you make TDD, you use to make TDD, etc. And in the end of your journey, okay, I have I have one or two or three comments. I see something in my view. I'm convinced that I have a thing that to speak about in the next meeting tomorrow in the morning. Because imagine, okay, today I write 5 unit tests and I practice TDD. Okay, it's great, no problem. Tomorrow, the same thing, etc. And if you don't have a productive enough code, people that didn't have that are not convinced about TDD maybe think, oh, it's a lot, we lose our time,
Yep.
etc.
Yep.
Why? And this junior or mid developer use our money to for everything
Yeah.
or nothing.
This You're reminding me of a paper that was written about TDD
Okay.
long time ago now. By It was a collaboration between um, I think it was a
Okay.
university and Microsoft and IBM. So um,
Okay.
pretty big names, and they wanted to ask, does TDD take more time?
Yes. That's yes. Yes.
And the answer is it depends what you mean, how you measure the time.
Okay.
If you are measuring from the programmer saying, I'm starting now, to the programmer saying, I think I'm finished,
Okay.
then TDD may take longer because you're writing more code.
Mm.
Um, Parameterized testing with Swift testing will make life easier, but without parameterized testing,
Mm.
usually I end up with twice as much test code as I do production code in terms of lines of code, usually
Yes.
2x.
Yes.
So I'm writing a lot of code, and it can take a little longer for me before
Okay.
I can say I'm done. The
Yes.
thing that though is for the business perspective is it doesn't matter when when the programmer says they're done, even though that's the unfortunate pressure that uh, a lot of management wants to ask. Are you done? Are you done? Are you done?
Yes. Yes.
It's not done until it ships.
Okay.
And there's a journey still from the time the programmer says, I think my first draft, basically, my I think of writing my first draft of my book and how much longer it took me to write a full book.
Mm.
Um, my first draft is done, but then typically uh, companies send it on for testing, evaluation. There may be QA people. There may be internal testing, dog food.
Okay.
Trying out yourself, eating it yourself, as it were. Um, that goes on a long time, finding bugs. And
Mm.
every bug then gets tracked, has to be reported, has to be reproduced, communicated back. There are meetings about the bugs. Um, we have status meetings. How is our bug count?
Yes.
All of that goes down dramatically because there are fewer bugs
Yes. Yes.
with
Yes.
TDD code. I'm not saying zero because um, you can still find things that you did not think about, that you have not expressed in test code. But once you have tests, you can have very high confidence that those things won't come back, and there will be fewer mistakes. So ultimately, I found in the time that it takes to ship code, and this is working in a team that is not doing extreme programming, I usually end up at the same ship time as
Okay.
anyone else,
Mm.
with the strong advantage that I have not only written the code, I have well tested and well factored code. The
Yes.
design is good, the safety is good. So that's my personal experience, is that it takes a little longer to say, I'm done. The time after that is much shorter
Okay.
before you can ship.
Yes. It's great. You have a lot of trust of your production code because you have covered a lot major use cases of with testing, and at this moment the number of bugs will decrease automatically.
Yeah.
Okay, you have the time to practice a lot TDD, and you change your mindset to accept that you begin by testing, etc. You make a lot of errors in the beginning, and
Yeah.
it's normal, but it take a time, maybe 1 year, 2 years, and but it depends also which kind of company you work with, because
Hmm.
not a lot of developers have this opportunity that their manager or their lead senior developers or lead developers accept that these developers try to work using TDD, and no one of us have experience with TDD. He
Mm.
make things as he think, and we didn't have any mentors to help him, because we are not convinced to use TDD at this
Yeah.
moment. This junior developer uh, or in parentheses or this craftsman chip developers who try to make things use TDD, she would have a great personality to keep consistently to make TDD, to convince these people, to convince business that TDD it's great. Uh, for me, it's a great challenge to have this kind of company. What we have now, that as you said in the beginning of this podcast, that great tech company didn't make TDD or unit testing. Imagine company that his goals is to didn't have this kind of culture of using extreme programming principles. It will be very hard to only one or two developers to keep this logical of this mindset of writing using TDD. I think that you have the same opinion. Yes.
Well, but there are things I think that can make that easier and successful, at least
Okay.
partially successful.
Okay.
One is that um, it used to be rare when I started. I would write tests and I would run them, but there was no builds. The build server was not running the tests.
Okay. Right.
So now everybody accepts that the build server has tests. Uh, and and so that is helpful. Every boss, I think, wants good tests because they understand the value of automation. That if the computer can do it, it's much cheaper than having people do it. And where if QA people feel threatened by this, I would say, I'm getting rid of the worst part of your job so that you can do the best part of your job, which is exploratory testing, to do the things I didn't think about. Um, uh, and so the way I try to sell TDD a lot of times is to tell management, you may not care about test-driven development, but what you will end up with is well-tested code. Don't you want that? What you will end up with is code that is cheaper to change. The cost of change is lower
Yes.
than non-TDD code.
Yes.
Don't you want that? Um, so I would focus not on TDD but on the outcomes. on the
Okay.
goals.
The
TDD is
outcomes.
just a tool.
Yes, it's just a tool.
It's
It's
just a
not.
tool.
It's not tools for fun for developers. They have a business impact
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
when we have much more bugs, our code is covered by testing. Okay, we didn't accept in the beginning that these developers may maybe take a time to have this experience with TDD, but after that, when we give to developers team this ability to make errors, etc., to use TDD, maybe we have a deliver not a complete deliver because they have the time to have this experience with TDD. But after I think for 6 7 months we have a lot of new code that covered by TDD. We
Mhm.
have a lot of developers that okay that their mindset is changing. A lot of production code, enough production code if you want, because we write a lot of production code that I think that we didn't need a lot of code to pass our use cases if we use TDD. At this
Yeah.
moment, okay, inside to have 20 lines of code in this function, we have only 10 or 15. We have a lot of time in compilation, etc., and delivery, etc. And all our use cases are testable, especially in domain, etc. Our networking is testable. For
Mhm.
me, it's great. And after that, we have, um, as you say, much less bugs, a lot of productivity, a lot of trust on our technical teams. And for me, it's great because the environment will be much attractive for developers that come to our company and okay, they make TDD and they do things great and they have a lot of productivity. Their application have a great reviews in the Apple Store. For me, it's great. Okay. Uh, uh, we move now to our last section about the new testing framework that
Ah,
Apple speak about. We speak a little bit when you make the first example to speak about triangulation and fake it till you make it the two techniques with FizzBuzz. Apple in WWDC 2024 introduced the new framework that they call testing that replacing XA test. Uh, Maybe I think that you have a lot of things to speak about. Your opinion on this new framework. Uh, do you think that this framework can improve the practice of TDD in iOS development?
hmm. Maybe. I hadn't really thought of it that way. What
Okay,
I am excited about the new framework.
okay,
I think it brings some much needed modernization, uh, things that have been existing in other testing frameworks for other languages for a long time now, such as parameterized tests.
mm,
Instead of it, that you just end up with a lot less test code if you have parameterized tests, which is easier to maintain, therefore,
okay,
and uh, right, less code is better
okay.
usually.
Yes. Practical, a second practical session.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I think that could help. Interestingly, I think that might help TDD because then there's less code to maintain with good parameterized tests. Another thing that I think will help is that the setup and teardown are now much more natural. People were confused for a while about the need for setup and teardown. They're like, I can just define a property in my XCTest class, subclass, right? And I'm like, no, 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 no. Um, you can't do that because every test uh, your class has, if you have 5 tests, there are 5 instances of the class that exist all at the same time. They're living, each one is just waiting to be activated. And so if you just use normal, like the obvious Swift thinking of, I'm just going to say let something and call some setup to set up a property, that would be called in Xctest. If you have 5 tests, that would be called 5 times before the test runs,
Yes.
before any test runs.
Yes.
And there's some danger there. So I think that having it be more natural, more Swifty, with Swift testing, to say, I can just make it a normal property, I can just use init like I'm used to, will actually decrease the errors that people have in tests. So it will result in better tests, safer tests. I think that could help. The test names now, we can have natural language annotation for the tests. You can say @test and put a string to just maybe give a little bit better description of the test. That could help. One thing that I wish Xctest doesn't have, and Swift testing, as far as I know, doesn't have, and that is when the test is randomized, which comes by default with Swift testing. That is, that it will execute the tests in random order, which is helpful.
Yes.
The problem with that is that there's no way to take that say you have a failure because there are 2 tests that are interacting mistakenly. One test depends on another, and so when you randomize it, whoops, now it's broken because the order is different, and we don't want that. There is no way to say, I want to take that same random order and replay it so that I can diagnose the bug in my tests.
Okay.
So that's a disappointment still. Maybe we can work on that. Swift testing is open source. So
Yes.
maybe that's an invitation to somebody who wants to delve into the randomized test runner part and say, how do I have it report the test, the random number seed to generate the random numbers? How do I report that? And how do I then input that, say, I want to take that same seed and input it for the next test run so that the order
because
is the
people
same.
maybe think about one of the principle to make tests agnostic, the result of we should not have side effects of a test to use it in another test, maybe
Yeah.
because for this reason that Apple encouraged to have this opportunity. But they have also we can make our testing serializedly using I think when you
Yeah.
define your suite of testing, you can
Mhm.
say, okay, I want that we have this order of testing for me and
Serializable.
serialized, yes, serialized
Yeah. And
options.
so we want to move away from that, of course. I
Okay,
think that exposes a weakness in the tests.
okay,
So ideally, you should be able to run a single test.
okay,
You should be able to run the tests in any order. It should not matter. So .serializable is our sort of escape.
escape, yes.
It's yeah. Think of it as fixing a warning.
Okay. Okay. And
So I
okay,
think that Swift testing makes unit testing easier. I hope, therefore, that more people will adopt it.
okay,
And then the culture of unit testing being stronger, I hope, will make more people interested in TDD. But it doesn't solve the basic problems that you still need to solve with TDD, which are things like, how do I test my views? How do I test my networking? How do I
Yes.
test persistence?
Yes. At this moment, okay. I don't think that you have the opportunity to testing ou bien to use this new testing framework in a real project until now.
Yeah, not yet. I'm working on a demonstration I do on Twitch, but
Okay.
I should mention that I Twitch live coding, doing test-driven development for SwiftUI
Yes.
on Sundays.
Okay.
But I thought, oh, I can switch over from XCTest to Swift testing. But in order to write unit tests for SwiftUI views, I'm using View Inspector. And View
Yes.
Inspector, because it's written with XCTest in mind,
Okay.
uses an XCTest expectation to give things
Yes.
a little bit of time to run. And so until that catches up, I have to stay with XCTest.
Okay. Okay. It's great. Okay. It's great. We come to the last part, to the end of this podcast, and maybe to speak about advices for developers. What kind of advice would you give to iOS developers who are new to TDD and want to integrate it into their projects?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if there is any specific resource or practice you recommend for mastering TDD in the context of iOS development.
Yeah, great questions. Um, my first advice is practice outside of your code. That's what a code kata is. It's a time for you to practice. The purpose of a kata is not to come up with a solution. It is to practice
Yes.
the act of creating code.
Yes.
So practice, get better at it. Then you come into your real code. Where's a good place to start? I would stay away from view code at first. View controllers and SwiftUI views later.
Later. Okay.
Later.
Okay.
A great place to start is JSON conversion to write
Okay.
encodables. Now, a lot of times, en- I'm sorry, decodables, or the codable protocol. If you're decoding
Same.
some JSON, sometimes there's very little work that you have to do. You just declare everything and it works because the definition of the external API happens to match your internal API, and it's okay. But that's still a good place to start with TDD, is to say, let me create some JSON, like actually put JSON into a string and turn it into data, and then say, okay, I want to decode this. Do I get the struct that I expect? That is a good place to start TDD. It is even more fun if there are differences between the external API and what you want on your internal struct, how you want to represent things. For example, if the naming is different, or you want to move things around uh, to make it easier to work with. So that's my advice there, is that working with JSON is a good place. It's not the networking. You're just saying, let's pretend we made the network call. Let's pretend we got this JSON. The wonderful thing about that is then you can say, what if the JSON is different? What if it's malformed? That's an edge
Yes.
case. Another piece of advice I would give is look up TDD with zombies.
Okay.
ZOMBIES.
Yes.
That's a helpful pattern for describing, okay, can I handle the zero case, like empty result? Can I handle 1? That's O. So 0, 1, like an array with one thing in it. Many. Can I handle an array with 3 things in it? So you see, the progression starts to
Yes.
become a little bit like FizzBuzz, where you start with
Yes.
something simple and build it up step by step. B is like boundary conditions. E is exceptions or errors. So do the happy path first. That's another piece of advice. When you're coding anything, especially any business logic, focus on the happy path, get it right, then think about the edge cases later.
Okay, thank you. It was great advices for people who know about TDD and who also want to practice. Which for me, it's a great opportunity to have these tools, like you say. It's a tools. It's not uh, because a lot of people think that if you don't use TDD, you are not a great developer. It's not. It's not
No,
right.
no,
It's
no,
a
no.
tools to increase our productivity. If
Yeah,
you want to practice it and you have fun to do, it's great.
it
That's
is fun.
the yes for yes, I know that's fun for people who make some efforts to do that, because it's depend of people, of developers, of sacrifice. Sometimes you should make some sacrifice uh, to change your mind, to convince people that that TDD is great. W- by how to convince them, but you should do more than the normal
Mm.
developers to convince the business, your teams, your colleague, etc. I think that's convince people by demonstration. It's much better than speak about the
Oh yeah.
concept.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
by practice. When you see
100%.
that when you see you that you make TDD, etc. Maybe in first, okay, Walidi, let's make TDD. But I know that they will not continue to do the TDD after 1 month, 2 months, etc. But after you keep this, you keep consistently in your in practice TDD. I think that after 1 year, some months,
Mhm.
you will be more comfortable to in these tools that we name it TDD, as driven development.
Yep.
Thank you, John. It was great. For our last episode before the holidays, I wish you for summer holidays and summer vacancies. I think for a lot of developers in July and August. I
Mhm.
think for me it was a pleasure that to have with me for this last episode before some
Oh, I stuck in.
okay, okay. We'll yes, no, it will be not the last episode of the Swift Academy, the podcast. It will be other our guests, and for me, it's I hope that you have fun with us in this episode to speak about TDD. I hope that our listeners and the people who see us find that TDD is great. Discover your books and other books by unit testing by example. Also, I think that you work in the quality coding, which is a great sources for agility, etc. If you want to speak about quality codings, if you want,
Oh, yeah. Go to qualitycoding.org. That
yes,
is my website. And check it out.
yes,
Also, really, I love to help people.
okay,
So
I know.
if people have questions, problems, challenges, um, send them to me.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you, John, and have a nice day, and see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.